I'm Raymond from Secret Base, the developer for the new Double Dragon Gaiden, Rise of the Dragons. So I'm mostly in charge of all the design works and the artwork, the creative vision, so to say. This started with my previous game. So I made a beat 'em up quite a long time back in 2014. It was a parody-based zombie beat 'em up, and I think it was quite well received by hardcore beat 'em up fans. Although back then, I think in 2014, a lot of people say that the genre wasn't exactly at its most popular time.
This was Devil's Dare, just to recap.
Yes, that's the one. So I think at the same time, Arc System Modes was sort of looking around to see if there are games that they can maybe publish on Steam or whatever, and then they reach out to me. We had a discussion, but then for that specific game, it didn't pan out because we were already working with someone. And then fast forward a few years, they already got the Double Dragon IP, and at this time I was looking around on the next game that I might want to work on. So they released Double Dragon 4, and that was a continuation of the classic. So I was interested. I reached out to them to share a vision of trying to bring the game in a new direction. What if we were to reinterpret the game and do something new with it? And then I gave them my pitch, my ideas. And it took some convincing, but then that's what eventually led me to work on the Double Dragon IP itself. So yes, we try to integrate some roguelike elements into the game because the old school beat 'em up were made for the arcade. So when we bring it over as a console experience, then I think the beat 'em up genre as a whole has been looking at how to make that experience more interesting when you have the game at home to play for hours and hours, compared to when you were in the arcade, it's limited by your tokens and all that. So I look at that and I try to look at what I can integrate to make the experience more fun when you are playing at home. And a lot of designs were inspired from roguelike games. But I have to say the game is a beat 'em up first with some roguelike elements, rather than some games that plays very heavily as a roguelike first with some beat 'em up elements. That's not the case here. We try to make sure that people that enjoys roguelike is gonna have a good time. But if that's not your thing, I think it doesn't place a very heavy emphasis on the experience. It helps you if you're into it, you're good at it, but it shouldn't be a big hinder. In fact, you can actually turn off the permadeath options if that's not your thing. So try to have a good balance for the players that is a bit old, like the old school experience, but also have something for the new guys. I'm sure like everybody that play beat 'em up or everybody that makes beat 'em up, this probably started when we were kids. I remember, so in Singapore where I'm based, you don't get to go to the arcade so often. So for me, my first experience with Double Dragon was actually on the NES. When I spent the holiday over at my cousin's place. As a kid, it was cool to see a game like this because it's about kung fu, fighting gangs, rescuing your girlfriend. So there's certain coolness to it that is unlike the usual Mario Ice Climber experience that I was used to, right? So that was the first memory of it. And of course, later on, you get others, the sequels, and also the movies and the Saturday morning cartoon. There was always something off about those. As a kid watching those, this doesn't seem to fit exactly. But at the same time, there is this longing for Double Dragon is something cool, and I want to see more of it. And they did eventually influence some parts of my design of the game. Because that is still something that a lot of people actually get to enjoy as well. So I think recent years there was a lot of approach that was taking the classic and then let's make an improvement of the classic, which is great. I enjoy that. My approach is slightly different. I try to look at what the game was about and how I can reinterpret some of that. So I'll give you an example is the tag team mechanic. right? So this was obviously not a part of the Double Dragon identity in the past, but I believe a part of why Double Dragon was called Double Dragon is because it was a two-player game, and I think back then that was not as common, especially for a game of this scope and scale. So it was called Double Dragon for that. So what does Double Dragon mean in 2013? So and then 2023, I eventually came up with the idea, how about we do a tag team game mode, because that is also highly popular in the action game community, fighting game community, right? So that was one of it, and then there was other things as well. Having a heavier combat that was unlike the later Capcom or Konami kind of beat 'em up, which was very fast-paced, lightweight, but Double Dragon was a bit heavier. So how do we balance that with, today's players' preference for fast-paced gameplay? So we try to look at the game and make sure that the animation will play through. If you commit to a heavier attack, you might have to you will land, and then you have to wait before you can recover yourself, which is something that is less common in some of the more fast-paced games like Final Fight or Streets of Rage. Like Double Dragon has a bit more of this. So we try to bring that in, but at the same time try to fix it with some modern approach. And there's one more thing that is actually interesting, I think is different from Double Dragon and some of the other games, is the environment. So if you look at the environment in most other games, most other beat 'em up, it is a beautiful giant background that you go from left to right. However, in Double Dragon, you actually traverse, you move up and down, you jump onto things, and then you climb the stairs and all that kind of stuff. So we had to do a lot of research how we can bring that in, but still make that a fun experience that doesn't hinder the game, because in the old games, due to technical limitation, that can sometimes be tricky, right? So you play Double Dragon, there were places that is like, really scary, and we want to bring that back, but not the scary part, to make it a smooth experience. So I'll start with Marion first. Since the game has the tag team mechanic, so obviously to make it a two-player game, I obviously need more than just two characters. So first thing first is I need more than two characters. So who do I add? And obviously, because Marion has been around for such a long time, so that was the first obvious choice for me to look into, and she fit all the criteria that I was looking for. For a start, I want somebody that's drastically different from Billy and Jimmy, who are more of the balanced, well-rounded character that new players will start with and learn the game with. I wanted every character to play differently, so the player can have a unique experience each time. So I look at her, and then I look at her backstory, and she actually, I believe in maybe even Double Dragon 1, but I know Double Dragon 3, I think, was already mentioned somewhere in the lore that she was a police. She is actually a police, and she actually trained with the brothers at some point. There was some like this kind of backstory. The story wasn't always consistent, but it was not something that was never brought out. So that give me the backbone of that, and says that, hey, if this is the case, then how do we make an interesting interesting Marion character that's also a police? And then obviously the guns, the rockets and all that fall into place. So that's good. We got 3 characters out of the 4, right? And then now Uncle Martin comes in, because we were looking at, okay, so we have the balanced character, we have the long range gunner. What's the opposite of that? And then obviously it was the muscle, the wrestler guy that can do all the grappling move, and that was that. And of course, I gave him the shield as an opposite of the gun. So he was actually given he fulfilled the other archetype that was missing, at least for the starting crew. His design was more of looking at what else would make the game fun, what was the missing piece, and then we come up from there. From a lore perspective, Uncle Martin, it was also because this game, we sort of bring the timeline back. This is sort of a prequel, spin-off, alternate timeline sort of storyline, and that allow us to bring new characters in. So Uncle Martin is obviously a new character, and one of the thing was that because Billy, Jimmy, Marion are all younger now, And I think a lot of the players are now a bit older. A lot of us will be playing with our nephew or kids, or and maybe they want to play as the older character taking care of the younger characters. So that's part of the idea. So the soundtrack is a slightly different story. So I think the development of the game, because this is a licensed game, there is a deadline that we have to finish the game. So things got pretty crazy halfway through along development. There's so much things that we want to squeeze into the game. For the music wise, like we were very lucky. We actually get to very early on we set a direction for ourselves to say is that we want to, instead of making new music that mimics the classic, what we should do is to have the classic music, but we remix them. Because in this game we also are bringing back a lot of the old characters, so it sort of makes sense that we have a few music from each of the mainline series. So that's what we did. We got the approval from Arc System Works, and then because we have a very tight deadline, the way I handled it was that I approached a bunch of musicians that I follow online, and then I bring everybody together to sort of have this crazy Double Dragon music composing jam that they each person will pick up a few songs, and then I'll give them the context, what's this is about, what was the original song about, and stuff like that, right? And they will each work on their stuff. One of the musicians actually take charge and ensure that everything, although each person is working on their own songs, there is an overarching direction that holds the game, holds all the different songs together. I think that actually came up quite well, because given the short amount of time we have, but because of the music that the old school game already established, those were really strong track, and then with the new direction, and I think with the mix, with everybody giving each other advice and preference and what they like and comments, we actually got some really nice track at the end of the day, which I'm really happy with. So for me, one of the games that inspired me a lot is Sonic 3 and Knuckles. I like that game because you can play as Sonic, Knuckles, or Tails, and they all play slightly differently. They have defining move, and I go through the same location, but they all have their own experience. So I love that, and I always try to put that in my game. I've done that in the past as well. So this time around, when I'm working on Double Dragon, I took the same approach. I want to have multiple characters, and I had this idea that I want this to sort of be a Double Dragon All-Star. So I'm going to bring back all the cool characters, and they are all going to play differently. So the easy thing to do if you are working on a brand new game is that you will have the archetypes all mapped out. So chances are, for example, right, to simplify things, you have the fast character, the medium character, and the slow character, and then you split down out into the beat down, rush down, the zoners, and and so on and so forth. The problem with this game is that there is already established personality and lore to some of the characters. So, for example, we brought back Abobo and Burnoff.
Yes.
This is immediately two huge characters, right? And in the old game, they were sort of similar. They were both. Abobo was the first boss of Double Dragon 1. Burnoff was the first boss of Double Dragon 2. So they sort of fit the same archetype, But then, then now how do we? And we need them to be different. How do we do that? We look at some of and this is where things like the movie and the cartoons and all that comes in. I think I look at Burnoff, for example. I look at it was Double Dragon, the fighting game, and that has a Burnoff that is more like a slightly. He was a big character, but he was also a little bit more agile.
Oh, the SNK one, right? If I remember.
Was it SNK? I think so. It was on Neo Geo.
Neo Geo, yeah. Neo Geo,
yeah.
Not SNK, sorry. It was Neo Geo game because it was based off the movie.
Yes, the fighting game that was based on the movie. So I knew that there was that background where he, at least in one of the iterations, he was a bit of a faster character. I didn't want to do it 100% like that. He was not a replication of that character, but we have that history. So how about we bring him in that direction as a heavy but agile character? Whereas Abobo, he he has this growing muscle mechanic because he's already sort of like a human muscle, right? So yeah, the moving muscle, so to say. So I managed to bring them, further apart and do tweaks from there on out. Yeah, but that's as far as I can push it. And then at some point, then you start to do play tests, and then you get player feedback, and then fine tune, and then iterate, and all that. For all the characters, we gave them multiple moves, so you end up with 3 moves each, and then like even their normal attacks are quite different, right? We gave them more, and then we took out the ones that weren't fun enough. So the workload is actually quite a bit. I think I will keep that first because there's a chance that I might bring them back. There is a lot of popular characters that we want to bring into the game that we didn't get the chance to. And like I say, right, this was supposed to be Double Dragon All Stars. I'm hoping that I can have the chance to bring them back even after the game has launched. The one that influenced me the most, I think, was Double Dragon 2, and I referenced to that a lot for this game. I think of all the games, this one, Double Dragon 2, was one that I investigated more compared to some of the others, right? And I recently just played it again on my Nintendo Switch. And the other one was actually, again, the New Yo fighting game. That came out a bit later. I was already a little bit older. So I played that quite a bit. I enjoy it as a fighter. So although that was not one of the main line, but that also was part of my Double Dragon memory. Oh yes, Double Dragon 3 actually has a lot of interesting mechanic. Like you're saying, the switching of character, we wanted to go even further in that direction. But of course, like we have already thrown in so much system, so it was hard to throw in even more, But Double Dragon 3, I really enjoyed a lot of the ideas for it. Like even the fact that I think you can actually equip weapons for each one of them. Like Billy and Jimmy has the nunchuck, and then there was the sword and the claw. So that's also different from the previous Double Dragon 1 and 2. So there were definitely interesting stuff there. We took some of it with our own interpretation, but I wish we could do more. But that was the DNA there. I think this is a good Double Dragon for both new and old gamers alike. If you have played the older games, I think this would be a good time for you to jump in to try out something new. But we have taken the old DNA and done a lot of new improvement, and then like new system that allows you to have fun. For the new gamers, this is a fresh start, so this is a good time for you to get into it and see what the hype was all about. So I think this is a good opportunity for everybody to get into the game. Apart from that, I think the game should be out by the time you are seeing this video, and let us know how you like the game.